And so there comes a point where we really know that this teaching works and it brings what it says that it brings. And when we understand the teachings, then when we have unwavering confidence in the teachings, it's just natural that we also have unwavering confidence in the Buddha, because the Buddha is the one who just basically gave that teaching. So it's not about blind faith in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. It's actually through understanding the Dhamma, we understand that the Buddha was teaching the path of liberation, that he was right. And so we become just very unshakable in our confidence in the Buddha's teaching. It's just how it is. Is it gonna be tonight? Day 9. It went by so fast. Again. It seems like that every retreat. Just as it starts to get really good. And then it's like, it's over. Can't we just have more fun for 10 days? Another 10 days? But such is life, and all things that come up are bound to pass away, like this retreat. We've talked a lot about the whole path, the canoe expedition, the meditation expedition, and I use this analogy of the canoe trip and exploring new territory and going up further up the river. And this analogy of the drainage divide, where there is a place where things change and the further practice starts. And there's been a few questions today about the further practice. So, what to expect from now on, how to practice at home, but also maybe touch a little bit upon a topic that seems to be very popular nowadays, which is very in line with our theme for this retreat, which is water, if you've noticed. The theme of this retreat was water, rivers and lakes. And that is stream entry. And so there's quite a lot of information out there, all kinds of information, and I think it's really good to have a basic orientation on what that means, stream entry, and to first know what this is, we have to understand a little bit where is this path of the Buddha leading us. And so on this retreat we've learned a lot about the Eightfold Path. We've learned about the meditation, how to use right effort, how mindfulness arises through right effort, and how the mind deepens into these levels of meditation. And then there was this question today about, and then what? Because, and it's a really good question, because so we just do this over and over again, and that's it. What does it lead to? What to expect? And so, first of all, what we call the stream here is the Dhamma, and the stream is the Eightfold Path. So, in the original teachings of the Buddha, the stream is the Eightfold Path. Is what we've been learning more about on the retreat. And so the more we learn about the Eightfold Path, the more we learn about the Dhamma, the more we understand. And the more we understand, the more we practice accordingly, in accordance with the Dhamma. And the more we do this, the more we experience the Dhamma. And there comes to be a point where someone is swimming. Swimming in the Dhamma. There's this beautiful imagery that the Buddha gave, and it's mostly found in the Vinaya, actually. We find in the Vinaya, and by the way, the Vinaya is the monastic discipline, or the monastic rules. Not a lot of people read the Vinaya, except the monks. Because it's pretty dry and pretty intense. It's pretty intense read. Because it's all the stories of why the rules came up, and these stories are not always very pleasant. Actually, most of the time they're not. But they're stories nonetheless. And there's also good stories in there, but it's also like the biography of the Sangha and the Buddha, because it's really, the suttas are not linear. They give a lot of teachings and kind of stories through it, but the Vinaya is more story-oriented, I guess. So it's more like a living biography of the life in those times. And that is where we find how the Buddha taught in like a third-person kind of setting. So it is said that the Buddha would always first uplift the mind of his audience or of his students. He would always start with generosity, the virtues, the blameless happiness of the virtues, the devas, the collecting devas, and all of these beautiful things. And when he knew that his audience was happy, was uplifted, then he would explain the Four Noble Truths. And at that moment, in that sequence, which happens quite a few times, it's said that the vision of the Dhamma would arise in people, the Dhamma Chakku. And so that is one of the places which I find beautiful, and I like to look for to see where that begins. Because Sota, entering the stream or stream entry, Sotapatti or Sotāpanna, Sotāpanna, can mean stream, Sota, Panna, entering. And it can also mean Sota, ear. And so by just hearing the Dhamma, hearing the teachings, there can be breakthroughs in wisdom and understanding. And so just listening to the Dhamma is quite profound and important. A lot of the time it can be like a very profound guided meditation in some talks, and some things can really open up. And at that point, it's not really specified more than this, what that means, what the vision of the Dhamma arising in someone, what does that mean exactly? It's not really specified in that little sequence. But from what I understand is that someone understands now the Eightfold Path. They've heard about it. They've heard of the truth of and that there is a way that we cause ourselves problems. What is the cause of that? That is our own inclinations and desires and dissatisfaction. And there's a way out of that. There's a way that this can be actually released and we can experience happiness, release. And then there's the path. And then usually that's enough to really inspire faith in people who are genuinely looking, and to have a bit of an idea. Of course, the Buddha would talk about, the whole of the path, and which I'm not going to do because we already did. This is day 9, so that's why it's good to talk about this now. And so like this, people kind of see the Dhamma maybe for the first time and get a grasp at it, get an understanding. But that doesn't mean that they are locked in. That doesn't mean that they're not going to, just stop meditating or just stop practicing altogether. There's no definite rule. And this brings us to this other aspect of stream entry, which is that there are two levels of it. There is the path, someone who is on the path of that quality of stream entry, of that understanding. And then there's someone who is, there's the fruit of that quality, which means that that person is firmly locked in. Their understanding of this quality is unshakable, and they cannot fall away. And to put this into broader context, stream entry is the first level, what I call the levels of awakening, the 4 levels of awakening, but the Buddha called them the Ariya puggala. So Ariya puggala is the saintly people, or the people who have understood the Dhamma deep enough to be liberated from certain, what we call fetters. And these fetters are like things that keep us in wrong view, keep us away from our own liberation. And so there are 4 of these stages. The first one is stream entry, Sotāpanna, Sotāpatti. The second one, I've mentioned those in an earlier talk, but we'll just go through them again. Sakadagami, a once returner. And these, don't worry, these will become clearer as I explain. A once returner is said to have such wisdom that they will come back once in the sense realm, which can be a human birth or some of the devas above. And then they will make a complete end of, they will become liberated in that lifetime. And then there's the third one, who is called an Anagami, which is a non-returner. These people will have such depth in wisdom and understanding that they will not come back to a sense realm. They will go up to a special plane of existence, which we call a special Brahmaloka, and that is the one of the pure abodes. That is what it's called. So basically, just not having a body, not having any senses, having the body of a universe, probably experiencing something like radiant poise and calm and bliss until they become completely liberated. And then there is what we call an Arahant. Arahant is the fourth and final stage, which is fully liberated person. So that's in brief. I will go, as we move along through the fetters, I will be explaining a little bit more about these four people. And so just so you understand, this is in the original or early teachings of the Buddha. This is kind of the scheme of awakening. This is kind of how, we all practice the Eightfold Path. And as we practice, as we purify our minds and deepen our understanding and deepen into this liberation, certain unwholesome qualities within us will dissipate, will disappear slowly, will become eroded, and then slowly disintegrate until they're actually not there at all anymore. And these qualities is like a gradient progress through these stages of awakening. There's quite a few things to know about these things. I'll try to cover most of these things quite squarely, not so much in great depth, but try to cover everything that is quite important to know about it, and so you can have a really good understanding of what that is. And so first of all, we understand stream entry as the four factors of stream entry. And I gave those earlier. Does somebody remember? When we practice the Eightfold Path and see our own defilements wear away and our mind becoming freer and freer and happier, there comes a point where there is unwavering confidence in that teaching. So we just basically experience it for ourselves. Pacchatang veditabbo vinyuhiti. So that's one of the qualities of the Dhamma. It is experienceable by the wise for oneself. So as we practice, we experience these teachings and we see them work. We see them work. When we let go of anger, there's relief. We bring up loving kindness, forgiveness, bring up a smile, relax the body. Instantaneously, we feel liberated. We feel this relief. It's immediate. And so as we practice this over and over again, the mind starts to change and we become much more steady, much more calm people, much more wholesome in our interactions. And so there comes a point where we really know that this teaching works and it brings what it says that it brings. So, and when we understand the teachings, then when we have unwavering confidence in the teachings, it's just natural that we also have unwavering confidence in the Buddha, because the Buddha is the one who just basically gave that teaching. So it's not about blind faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. It's actually through understanding the Dhamma, we understand that the Buddha was teaching the path of liberation, that he was right. And so we become just very unshakable in our, not faith, but confidence in the Buddha's teaching. That's just the Buddha. It's just how it is. And then we have unwavering confidence in the Sangha, the community of people who are actually practicing this. Sangha is the monastic Sangha, but also any lay practitioner that is actually practicing this. And then the fourth one is the virtues. So at least the five basic virtues. These 5 basic virtues of not killing, not stealing, not having any sexual misconduct, and not speaking lies, and not taking intoxicants or substances like this. One simply knows that to break one of these virtues would just really agitate the mind to an extent which is really, it doesn't make any sense anymore. Like, you couldn't purposefully tell a lie or hurt some living beings, because the remorse would be just yes.
What about in self-defense?
In self-defense, yes. So that's another thing. I mean, just as like forward violence kind of thing, or we always kill living beings whether we want it or not. Like, we step on beings and we just don't know, and that's okay. But well, it's sad, but it's okay. But in self-defense, that's even for the monks. It's there's also limits to what that means, but I'm not sure, into like a self-defense how far it could go. But so basically, behind all of these virtues is the intention. So whatever intention is in the mind, so if your intention is clear, that is, you just want to protect yourself, that's okay. It's okay. Sometimes things happen. Hopefully not, but and so if you kill some kind of living being and the intention was not to kill, then that wasn't your intention. So that karma is not actually yours. It's not like you killed it purposefully. That's why I add purposefully killing living beings or on purpose in the puja in the morning. Because then a lot of people ask, oh yeah, but I killed this one and then I killed him. It's like, well, you just didn't know, that's okay. And so when one has complete, unwavering confidence, unshakable confidence in the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, and the virtues, one is known to have the 4 qualities of stream entry. So that's one aspect of it. Now the other aspect is relating it to the fetters. The fetters, the 3 fetters that are abandoned at stream entry, the 4 unwholesome qualities or the 4 misunderstandings that are given up at stream entry is first, the belief in a self. And just on a light note, but when somebody understands the Eightfold Path, understands dependent origination, one understands that this being, the sense of a self, is actually fully conditioned. And it's not eternal, it's not an eternal soul, it's not an eternal being that goes through all of these lives and incarnations. That is consciousness. And that consciousness itself is fabricated. So that's a pretty deep statement. But to really understand the Dhamma, to really understand the Eightfold Path, and to really understand stream entry, one has to understand this. So see, this is profound, and that's why the Buddha said there's a few stages before that. One can be a faith follower, just somebody who has a lot of faith in the teaching and follows that teaching, but maybe doesn't understand it so well. Then there's a Dhamma follower who actually studies a little bit the Dhamma, understands a little bit, but it's just at the beginning. And then there is stream entry per se, the path, and then there's the stream entry fruition. So it's a gradient line, and the thing that's happening nowadays is that it's being taken out of its context, out of the Buddha's teaching, and people are applying it to all kinds of stuff that actually that's not what it means. So it's good to know that actually there is a little bit of knowledge needed that also tells us that somebody else cannot tell you what you are. And that's also quite popular nowadays. A lot of meditation schools or Buddhist schools will kind of hand out certificates and tell you that you're a stream enterer, tell you that you're an Anagami. People will believe they're Arahants and all these things. And so actually the only person that ever did that was the Buddha. And aside from the Buddha, whoever tells you that you're a stream enterer or whatever it is, you should probably just, okay, thank you, bye-bye. And respectfully leave the room. Because these things, they just don't happen like that. You have to understand what that means. And then you practice, and then you experience it for yourself. And then it becomes really unshakable. You really understand what that means. That's the only thing that can happen. You can come, we can talk about it, we can clarify things over. I can help you understand a few things, but I can never tell you where you are on this path. We can have some kind of an idea, but in the end, also, what is really good to remember is that this is a meditation retreat. All causes and conditions are really good. It's very perfect. And there's little things, little distractions arising then and again. But that's not where to look for the fetters arising or the big stuff arising. It's when it goes wrong. It's when it goes wrong that we can really know what's going on, what there is inside. The Buddha said that before you can know what somebody truly is, for example, like a fully liberated person, an Arahant, you need to spend a lot of time with them. And you need to know how they are behaving in all of these little aspects of their lives. And do you actually ever see something arising in them? That's the only way you can really know. Even the Buddha said that. So it's not something to be rushed into. So as we understand dependent origination, that this whole fabric of the sense of self that we have is just composed of all of these things that we cling to, and we talked about that quite a bit. And this whole process is fabricated and conditioned. And here we are just reconditioning, reprogramming towards the wholesome, towards states that are selfless, that are light, that are uplifting, and that kind of bring us to liberation. And so this sense of identity, there will still be pride, there will still be conceit, there will still be anger, there will still be unwholesome states. But the understanding will be firmly established that this sense of self is fabricated. It comes up through causes and condition, from the body all the way down to consciousness, including perceptions, mental activities, and sensations. On a light note. And then one is said, and this is called Sakkaya Ditthi, so that belief in a self, in a person. And then the second fetter to be let go of is Sila Bhatta Paramasa, and that is rites and rituals. Of course, there are different interpretations of this. I am offering my understanding, and you can explore more later. But the way that I understand this is that at the time of the Buddha, and still today, a lot of spiritual traditions believed that rites and rituals led to liberation or awakening. And whilst there can be substantial evidence for rites and rituals to have some powers, that is not untrue. But to experience Nibbana, to experience the liberation that the Buddha explained, rites and rituals is not the way. So blind beliefs are not the way. This is all tying back into understanding the Eightfold Path. When one understands this, it's just clear. This is the way. And so rites and rituals like ritual bathing, like at the time of the Buddha, a lot of people believe that, I think it was day 3, I read the simile of the cloth, that bathing in the river, in the Ganga, in the Ganges, was washing away people's sin and all of that. Well, that's an example of rites and rituals not leading to, the Buddha would say, somebody can wash all they want all day in the Ganga and it's not going to do anything. So that's like this down-to-earth wisdom of the Buddha. And there's so many examples of these rites and rituals, and maybe some of you are familiar with the Vedas, the Rig Vedas, which mainly deal about how to perform rites, how to do the oblations, the offerings to Agni, the Agni Puja, to the gods. Well, that's exactly what the Buddha is talking about here. He's saying, no, you have to develop yourself. You have to develop in good qualities until this liberates you. And then the third one, which is vicikicca, doubt. And so obviously this encompasses what we've talked about before, the 4 factors of stream entry. So when one has unwavering confidence in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and the virtues together, doubt goes away. So that's what that means. So it's all kind of together. And so at this point, one is anchored enough in the stream, in the path. But see, we're not really, we're talking about more like points of understanding, like the view changes, like right view becomes more established, because we're talking about this understanding that there's no real self, no real identity. And then this understanding that rites and rituals is not the way, the Eightfold Path is the way. And then this understanding that, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha is basically mainly the Dhamma, the teaching is right, so it's all together. And so that the doubt this is not like, should I have coffee or tea this morning? It's not that kind of doubt. It's doubt in the teaching, doubt in the path. So, just so you know, you'll still wonder in the morning whether you should have a cup of tea or coffee. And so, when these 3 fetters go, one is said to be a stream entry. So there's still unwholesome qualities that can arise, but the main bulk of understanding is like the view is straight. The view is more straight. And so the next level is we keep practicing, keep understanding, but now the view is straight. It's like in the suttas they say, it's like somebody was to set up right what had fallen over, or shone the light in the darkness for those for those with eyes to see. For those with eyes to see, that's always made me laugh a little bit, but it's true. Or what had fallen over, been set up right. Well, that's when people understood the path. It was like, okay, their view became straight. And so we keep practicing in meditation, but in our day-to-day life. Because, like Bhante would say, he said, I wrote a book on it. I called it Meditation is Life, Life is Meditation. So my teacher has a book on it. And that was his last book. And he made a huge emphasis on this, by the way, that what you've learned here in the meditation, and especially in this practice, it's actually a very compatible practice with day-to-day life. Because you can do everything with metta. You can do everything with the 6 R's all the time. And the more you practice actually doing everything, chopping carrots, sweeping, atuganawa, bonchi kapanawa, bat uyanawa, all of these things while you're cooking, while you're cleaning, while you're working. You can actually do all of this with metta, because metta is actually tangible and easy to carry with everything that you do. And now that you've got this teaching and felt how the mind becomes collected with the metta, you're more confident in this. You know how that works with the smile, there's 6 R's. And you can just remember that feeling, bring a light smile, and then you can just cook and be like completely in samadhi. It's no problem. Okkoma hondai. And then you can just, as you do everything, you can just maintain that beautiful bliss in your mind. You can do that with the breath too, but the breath is more subtle. It's harder to get it. But the metta is quite more substantial. And it will really make sure that your mind is held. So as we practice in our day-to-day life, as we keep practicing in meditation, and this can take quite some time to, deepen, and that's completely normal. There's no rush in this. There's only, devotion. That's what it is. Devotion to the higher mind, devotion to the higher heart. And then at some point there will be a reduction in major unwholesome states. So we're talking about mainly like really strong sensory desires and really strong ill will or anger, impatience. Now these two things, which together combine in all sorts of ways, create all of the unwholesome states. These two states will be reduced greatly. And to what point, we don't know. The Buddha doesn't say. But that is where we find that level of once returner, Sakadagami, when strong sensory desires and hate or anger really greatly diminish. We're talking about once returner or once return. It's very unclear where that is exactly. So that stage is always a bit. But to give you an idea, it is understood that a stream enterer has maximum 7 more lifetimes to go before they make they have a complete liberation. They get to be fully liberated. And then a once returner is only 1. So when do you have 5? When do you have 3 lifetimes? When do you have 1? It's a bit unclear. But really, does it really matter? Not so much. I'm just, giving you a general orientation of what these stages are. So it's not really to make a big deal out of it. If you notice that you don't have as much anger, that doesn't mean necessarily that you're a Sakadagami. It's a really good sign. Keep going. But yeah, whatever. So, and then as we keep practicing and practicing and practicing, we get into what is usually called the higher training. So this is a little bit more dedicated practice, and that we're talking more. We're now talking about Anagami, non-returner, and that is when the fetters of anger and really sensory desires, the two that we just talked about that were greatly diminished, well, at that point they're gone. They're completely gone. They cannot arise anymore at all. So that means any preferences in food, any, so like for medical purposes, somebody can know that, they're allergic to this kind of food or whatnot, but they don't really care anymore. It's like, it's food. It's just gonna keep me alive, and that's it. Yes.
Does the Buddha speak about past lives?
Past. The experience of past lives. Yes. Actually, that is not really in the sequence of the 4 stages of awakening. But I could say that actually somebody can remember past lives at any of these stages, but it's not attached to any one of them. And to realize full awakening, someone does not need to remember their past lives necessarily. So there is a way that they can, and then there is a way which is not actually required. Talking about past lives would open up a very much bigger topic, so maybe I'll zip it up here and then... And so a non-returner will not have any sensory, desires. They'll know what they need to eat or whatever, they're not going to have any real big preferences about anything. They're not going to be attracted to pleasures of the senses, and that also includes physical attraction for whichever orientation they are from. That is just, at that point, Anagamis are to let go of sensory desires and anger. Their mind is so stable, extremely stable. They're basically always in jhana. The first level of meditation, abandoning kama chanda, abandoning sensory engagement, and abandoning unwholesome states. This is pretty much what it is. So an Anagami's mind is they're very level, very, very level. Very wholesome. Imagine somebody that cannot become angry, cannot lose their temper. It's really nice to be around. They're like a really solid anchor. It's like everything feels calm around them because they're just not shaken. They're not looking for something to do outside. They're just here. They're just there. And they're not shaken by whatever somebody's going to say or any kind of experience and they're just experiencing really wholesome mind, clear mind. Yet, doesn't mean that if you find somebody like that, they don't get angry when somebody throws them something or, something doesn't go their way. So you have to be careful. It doesn't mean when you see somebody that's really equanimous, there's all kinds of equanimity. So yeah, that's why you need to spend a lot of time with someone to know this, really, in actual reality. And so this is a quite profound attainment, by the way. Well, I don't really like this word attainment, but realization or experience or understanding. You know, sensory desires are pretty strongly, have pretty deep roots in our hearts and minds. So, and also impatience. I like at that level, I prefer to call it impatience rather than anger, because it's not going to arise that much at that level. It's more going to be this slight dislike, and it just goes like, no, and that's about that's about how it is. It's like, no, don't like. And then it doesn't last very long, but it's still there. So somebody that like gets impatient a little bit, then you can know that it's, or just for yourself too. This is really good, because one of the problems is that sometimes people think after a retreat that they're like Anagamis, because like, but Bhante, I haven't experienced anger for like 7 days. It's like, yeah, but everything's perfect here. Just go to town or something. You'll go spend a couple of months with your family. We'll see how it goes. So that's always what I say to people. So if you think you're an Arahant, just go spend some time with your family. We'll see. Give me a call after 3 months. We'll talk about it. So, yeah, that'll trigger some deep-rooted sankharas. And then we have even further. So this is really an advanced training. You know, this is really being fully devoted. There's no way you can get there without a lot of meditation and your life being fully devoted to just the path. That's just the way it is. Because at that point, that person is just, you know, that's it. They're only in jhana. And at the time of the Buddha, the highest level of attainment for lay practitioners was Anagami, because well, and still today, because there is a certain amount of agitation needed to, you know, maintain the family, run the household, and there's a little bit of bhava tanha needed. So, and it's not unwholesome. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that little tiny bit of, you know, you have to kind of make a living probably, or you have to figure out a way to make it work, and it's a wholesome thing. But the highest level of attainment was, you know, in the texts was Anagami, and those were very, very, very wise lay practitioners. So Chitta was one of them, really wise practitioner. And then full awakening, Arahant. Arahant, by the way, also means worthy, or, you know, maybe, yeah, like the literal translation would be somebody who's worthy. They've actually completed the path. The Buddha would say, for monks, we live in debt as long as we're not fully liberated. So, because we live from the generosity of the lay community, and so our job is to take care of our defilements. And so Arahant is very, the 5 last fetters that are abandoned are quite subtle. They are clinging to rebirth or life in any of the form realms. And this is somewhat high devalokas, somewhat high planes of divine existence. This is beyond the sense realms. For the cosmology geeks, this is beyond Tawatimsa. And then craving for rebirth in, or clinging, holding on to a rebirth or being in any of the arupa, non-material realms. So these beings are basically just the rupa realms are the first 4 jhanas. So these stages that are experienced in there, a person can be reborn in there if these levels of meditations are quite deeply anchored in the mind. And then beyond that, when someone is in the mental realms, that is endless space, endless consciousness, or nothingness, or neither perception nor non-perception. These are the arupa realms, where there is no body, arupa, and only mind. And so an Arahant is not even interested to be reborn in these planes. So really what that really means is that they're not even attached to any sense of self in any of these jhanas, in any of these stages of meditation. They are completely dissociated from these. They are not identifying like, oh, I'm entering neither perception or non-perception. No. They're just, this is just where the mind is, and then there's no attachment to any of these stages. And then restlessness, or actually, restlessness also vanishes, cannot be. And restlessness is like one of those hindrances that is like at the very, very bottom of the mind. Whatever the mind, unwholesome states the mind is experiencing, it starts with this vibration, that restlessness. And when it gets bigger, it goes into anger. When it gets bigger, it goes into, oh, I want to get this hamburger. And so restlessness is no longer possible. Why? Because conceit, mana or pride is also no longer possible. So there is no identification with any of these, any of the 5 aggregates of clinging, or what we call the self. They are just seen as this is what that is. This is arising and passing away. It's not me. It's not mine. And they just know this deep inside. And so when that is firmly established, restlessness cannot arise. There's no identifying. There's no identification with any of this. The mind is completely liberated all the time. It has nothing to bind it to any kind of conceiving or conceptualizing or identification. And what it is aware is the 4 resting places of awareness, the 4 foundations of mindfulness. It's just, that's why I call them the resting places, because the mind is just resting there. It's just feeling. It's just knowing these things. There's no craving that arises, so until the mind and body structures comes to an end, and then there's no more glue, there's no more craving in there to hold anything together, and then at the breakup of the body, all the aggregates are released, and one enters parinibbana. And then also that means that lack of awareness or ignorance or avidya is also gone, and this is the 5th. So that's it. These are the 4 levels of awakening, or the noble people. That's what they call it, or the saintly people, or whatever it is best understood. Throughout this progress of abandoning the 10 fetters, which bind us into this reality and this samsara. So, now that this is a little clearer, and that now you know that this is your own journey, and it is only by knowing these things and understanding and experiencing them for yourself that they actually are valid and that are actually confirmed within you. It's like the Buddhist confirmation comes from you. So that's the shift. And so the practice further, the practice beyond this. So as you become more settled and you practice more and you settle more into that clear mind. Let's just mention a few things about the clear mind, because quite a few people are there. Then there will come a point when the Dhamma, the teachings, will be very clear, will start to make a lot of sense, and one will experience the levels of meditation all the way and see the whole conditioned nature, fabricated nature of this whole process, and even awareness itself. And this can result in nirodha, cessation, and then coming back, understanding that this is what happened, and to see the mental activities of consciousness coming back together and understand this, all of this is conditioned. And at some point, the Eightfold Path will be deeply understood and integrated. And the transition between, so this is the drainage divide here, the transition between the mundane mind, which we've been paddling upstream all the time, upstream, upstream, because the mind likes to cling. What the mind does is it will try to find any object to cling onto. At any levels of the meditation, this is what it's going to try. It's going to try to find distractions. It's going to try to hold on, for example, to the breath. It's going to try to hold on to the arupa jhanas. It's going to try to hold on neither perception or non-perception. It's going to have some perceptions arising. It's going to try to look into it. It's going to try to analyze it. It's going to try to understand it. But actually, that's just the mind clinging, trying to find always objects to contemplate, to check out, something to do, something to munch on. But at some point, as we deepen into this practice, we reprogram our operating system to let go, release with the 6 R's. And at the deepest level, in neither perception and non-perception, for example, when it becomes even subconscious, we even train it in our subconscious mind, because we're not that aware of that state, but we still have to let go anything that arises in there. And at some point, the mind just like really completely lets go, and it gets reprogrammed completely, reformatted with a new operating system, which is release, autopilot. And this is when we cross over the drainage divide, and the stream that we've spent so much time paddling up and up and up, and so much energy to try to move away from the clinging mind that wants to go downstream all the time. Now we cross over the ridge, and the water that flowed south is behind us. Now the water of Dhamma, which flows north towards release, is what we'll be paddling. And the mind that understands this very deeply is no longer interested in clinging. It will cling to things still, but mainly it will be, because it will be a habit patterns until we're fully liberated. But it will be inside at the depth. It will be just more and more interested in letting everything go. Letting everything go. Letting the mind untangle. And it finds bliss and happiness in just letting go of everything. Letting go, letting go. Not keeping everything. And so the stream of the Dhamma flows in the other direction. It flows towards release, and this is actually found in the teachings in the original text. What a mind that comes out from Nirodha, what does it lean towards? What does it slant and inclines towards? It's inclining towards release, letting go, viveka. So the mind gets completely reprogrammed to let go and to flow. And this is another place where you can find the further practice. The further practice will become more and more and more effortless. The less you get in your own way, the better it is. And so more and more you'll just be wanting to just let go, release, relax, sit in meditation, just not keep anything. You might notice also your life will start to change, because we will want to have a lifestyle that is conducive to that, because that's just where we find happiness now. That stream inside that's just waiting to just pour even more of that bliss of liberation.